So, hello there. Let me add Master Liran. Welcome, Liran, to the community
Hello.
stage. We are so happy to have you with us.
I am happy to see
So,
you.
yeah. First of all, I wasn't even supposed to be emceeing today, but I got the distinct pleasure to MC this very last session, and it happens to be with you, so I couldn't be more pleased. So first off, thanks to Snyk for sponsoring the event and for leading the DevSecOn community. You folks are doing wonderful work there. Tell me a little bit about Snyk and in the DevSecOn community in general, and a little bit about your talk.
Cool. Well, Snyk is all about being a platform for developers. So we try to help developers, through all the ways that we know that they work on, to make them, very successful in the way that they resolve security issues. So it's anything from being actionable, right? Getting a pull request that you can merge it, letting you know exactly which package you should upgrade, which Docker container you should move to that has less vulnerabilities. So this is basically a developer-first open source platform for developers.
Super cool. So I'm going to let you take it away with your Ignite, and then we'll have a few more minutes afterwards for some chit chat and Q&A. And there you go. Take it away.
Sounds good, yes. Well, hey, everyone. Thank you for joining me today on this trick or treat dependencies defeat, kind of. So hello, developers. You're building your application probably on open source dependencies. But did you ever wonder where dependencies go to die? Yes, dependencies, they die. Did you think they're living forever? Think again. Join me on this journey today. I'm going to talk about some scare and also humor stories about real world incidents that happened with open source dependencies, some of which you probably have heard at least once, that got defeated by this open source world. So let's get right at it. First one is LeftPad. That's right. This is a story of how a legal action taken by a commercial body towards an open source developer resulted in breaking thousands of projects and their builds around the JavaScript and Node ecosystems. Among them were the Node and Babel projects themselves and the repositories that used it. So let's put something out there in context. You probably think that this is your typical team, right? You have Mary, Jonathan, and Mina there, right? This is your developer team. Not exactly, right? Probably there's someone else. There's Azar there. He is an open source developer contributing to your projects through his open source dependencies. So your development team is just a bit bigger over those three people. Actually, you forget maybe that you import probably about 90% of open source code from open source dependencies. So essentially, Azar is really a part of your team, like we said, and specifically for this team, because he wrote this LeftPad NPM module, which your team uses. Now, here's where things get a little bit tricky with open source dependencies. Azar actually has this NPM package, another one called Kik, K-I-K. But apparently that package is attached to, attracted the attention of lawyers representing the instant messaging app of the same name. Hello, surprise, there we go, we have it. Now what happens next is maybe a surprise, maybe not, but Azar obviously got this kind of a lawsuit, in the making. It started with an email and so on. But then Azar refused to rename or relinquish control of this NPM package. He has hundreds of other packages there. So what happens next? Well, NPM gets involved. NPM decides to make Azar kind of remove control of that. And so upon facing this lawsuit and the NPM organization not being able to consolidate between the two sides, Azar and this company, what happened is they did in fact move the access from Azar to this company. And so as an act of protest, Azar unpublished more than 250 packages as a sign, as he not wanting to be part of this registry of this game. Unfortunately, one of those NPM packages was this little tiny package called LeftPad. LeftPad has more than 2.5 million downloads a month, right? This is a 17 lines of code package, 17 lines of code package doing left padding of strings, but a lot of projects use it. And these fallout yank dependencies from the registry of the NPM community, causing other projects that depend on it to fail their builds because this package was no longer available. Again, projects like Node and Babel. So this is a story, right? Story number one, packages go to die sometimes. Package number two, story number two that we're going to end with today as well. would you be able to depart from a successful code project if you were a maintainer, if it meant that your contribution actually would make the world a better place, if you would remove it from the world, if you would make the planet a better planet Earth, and the environmental footprint if you removed it? Well, this is the story. Amazingly so. That's what the next story is going to talk about, with a maintainer who was brave enough to basically put his success on the sidelines if it meant a greener world. Let's see. In 2011, Francois releases a library, PHP library called Faker, for creating fakes. These are useful for database seeding and testing purposes. But Faker grew over time. It became really, really popular, as well as with other SDKs like Python and I think Node, and it has so many different supports for like languages and data sets, and it really, really became big. But Faker is now a monolithic library, so even if you just need a partial data set to fake usernames, for example, in your test, you actually need to download the entire library, the entire data set of other different faking data, like zip codes, like addresses, whatever, like first names and last names, everything. You need to download all of it. So what happens, a typical use case for it is people needing to fake usually one or two things, like a locale or something like that, but they end up downloading 70 plus language based data fakes. So how often have you considered the size of a library as a concern? Because yes, it's only 3 megabytes that you download. It's not, a big library. Even it's not going to the client side. It's just on your CIs and build and testing. But by 2019, it already seen hundreds of millions of downloads, right? And so many contributors and so many projects being dependent on it. It's really became big. But Francois had a moment, right? His inefficient library became problematic. Over the years, Faker has probably emitted more than 11 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. So being such a significant contributor to climate change killed him. Literally, well, not literally, but you know what I mean. So he actually proposed all of this. And as what do I do next with it? Francois has decided to stop the library, stop this project from being an ongoing project, and yes, letting it die. But let's find if there's a better way of letting it die. Let it die in a good way if it's possible. So two options have emerged. One is new maintainers, right? New maintainers can maybe take the lead, maybe do a refactoring or something around it. But Francois noted in his blog post summarizing the Faker issue on the planet, had actually, he said he had a bad experience of this past library he created, an ORM for PHP, that when he handed it off, it actually, then handed off to another maintainer and another maintainer. And those new maintainers thought that the code base was, well, shitty. So they started rewriting it for a 2.0 release. But, it sounds familiar, right? Rewriting and refactoring. But then 6 years passed from that and no new release. So as with open source, forks would probably a better way as Francois wants it, because new maintainers, not probably going to make it based on his experience there. The developers offered to move Faker to a new organizations, but that would lose reputation and all the stars that the Faker library has. So the other options that's on the table is just saying goodbye, which really is what happened, right? Repository got archived. No new pull requests, no new releases, continues to be available on the Composer registry until it fades away. Of course, if you're interested, there's a note from Francois. You are welcome to create a better Faker, probably going to be quicker, nicer, don't need his authorization to do it. That is the beauty of open source, right? So he had noted, of course, you'll probably regret it in a few years, as open source maintainers burnout is clenching hard. So open source is great. Just do not forget. What shouldn't you forget? Well, the only thing that lasts forever are dependencies. Don't think so. Love. Are you in love? Well, hopefully for you it's gonna end well, but from my age, not really as well. But cats videos on YouTube, those are going to be, there forever. So stay safe, stay secure. If you have any questions, ping me on Twitter at Liran_tal. Thank you for joining my session today. And that's a wrap. Sharon, I think you're on mute.
I am, and you missed my whole what an awesome session. So let me do that again, even though I did it while muted. But yeah, that was a really great session. That was super fun, and I love the slides too. So what you're saying is that while open source is awesome, there are still some things that you really need to be wary of and be careful. And tell me a horror story that you ran into, not just like an industry one, but something that happened specifically to you.
Oh, with dependencies, right? Well,
Yeah.
there's another one. Is Promise is one of them, which got an update that broke a lot of things as well because of the way that maintainers wanted to move fast with an ESM kind of JavaScript definitions, which didn't work really well. So I mean, those stories really happen all the time. It wasn't a lot of work on my end to kind of put this stuff together. It's really interesting to see that dependencies are great. We just need to be a bit more vigilant and do the due diligence and just stay on top of them. So yeah, that's my story as well.
And a good way to check that out is a super nifty tool that Snyk created called OS Advisor. Tell us a little bit about OS Advisor.
Indeed. Go tell me about it.
You tell me about it. I'm in my community hat today.
No worries. So the open source advisor is like a register, like you'd go to NPM, but then you need to figure out if there's a community alive for it. So you go to GitHub, but then you want to figure out how many downloads. You go back to NPM. It's like back and forth. What we're trying to do with the Snyk advisor is basically a place where we pull the data for you from all different places, from Snyk for security, from GitHub for community, from NPM for download. We put a lot of this data into place. We quantify it for you. We put like a package overall health score. And then you have all of that data to look into, and the way that we score it as well, and that gives you just one, in one place, and a consolidated view of the package overall health. So yeah, go check it out. We're happy to see, if you ping me on the score that you got from it, and let's see, what's going on there.
That's awesome. So just a quick, just in one line, I mean, because you brought together a lot of things that happened, but what would be your one best tip, if you could summarize in a quick tip, best practice? How do you know to avoid any of those scenarios, or what's going on, or where do you find your information, or what's the best way to get on top of these types of things?
Yeah, I'd say there are two ways to do it. One way is the the proactive, so the way that before you go into a package, so definitely do the due diligence for it. I know people who have actually scanned through the code, and they actually check if that code is to their liking, if it's maintainable, just in case they would need to maintain it and the maintainers would not be there. So to do that, what really helps is a Snyk advisor to kind of let you know a bit, what's going on with the package. Is it maintainable? Does it get frequent releases and so on? So we try to do that. So that's when you choose a package or want to move maybe to a different one. The other one is, once you're in, right, you have a project, you have dependencies. At that point, monitor for it, right? You want to monitor for your project's dependencies. Snyk is a great tool for that. Later on, we're going to add all of those package insights from the advisor as well into it, probably. So it will give you all of this. If you could do things if a project got a score below whatever X number and you want to be aware of it and maybe change it or do something, that's your chance to do it. So choose your packages wisely, and of course monitor them for security issues which might bite you in production. You don't want to be at that point.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for finishing up our sponsor track super strong. This was a really, really great talk. Thank you for your sponsorship, and go have fun in the community. Today is the day to celebrate the TLV community.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.